coming back on again. I just utterly lost internet here for a few minutes, unfortunately, which is very unusual. That doesn't really happen. I got to get a URL. Let me get the Twitch URL for YouTube, because their link will be dead. Stream died. Go to Twitch. Oh, chat's no longer available. Evil. Okay, anyway, is it back? Yeah, sorry about that. It seemed to just completely die. What's the last thing you saw? We'll continue here. I tried to message the YouTube about the situation, but when the stream ends, YouTube's like, oh, that event is over, and it starts a new one. So nothing I can do. Hopefully most people are mostly here on Twitch anyway. So apologies, it was weird. Let me get back on the screen. Okay, what did we lose? Did you see, I know it would have taken Crossfader a second to text me, and thank you for the heads up. I made this wall, and then using the field force, I made a second helix, and that helix is put using a radius with a negative direction, inverted direction, to push them towards the center. And once that's added on top of this one, things want to stay away from the wall but still twirl inward. So hopefully that catches it back, if that makes sense to everybody. Somebody let me know if I've missed a detail. So I'm just making a few extra sheep via this cloner, and I'll move this out to the outside, and let's hit play and see what we get. Hopefully all of these will start moving in. Some of them might escape out the outside, which wouldn't be surprising. Yeah, because they were outside the spline. That's completely fine. I want to trap them all inside though, so shrink that down a bit. And there they go. Now they should all, we got more sheep trapped into the center, and they should want, and oh, I keep on messing with the wall. I gotta stop doing that. The wall goes below, the sheep go above. Okay. So here's the thought. We put the sheep into a null, and we make a second one. Turn off the cloner for a moment, and yeah, there's our sheep. So let's make this the head of the sheep, and we'll pull that forward, and we'll make that one black. I don't know, the cloner will probably kill off these colors, but we make that one black. And now we've got the body of the sheep. I'm gonna make that a little bit bigger. It's already adorable. Okay, so if we connect these two, even in the simplest way possible, if I say a connector, it'd be kind of nice to make the head be able to swivel, so maybe I will do that. So if we spin that 90 degrees, and we pivot from there, that's the idea. I want the, I guess I would become a child of the body, so that becomes the body. And that will connect the body to the head, right? So does that work? Does that stay connected? Seemingly, yes. So the body, yes, it's dynamic, but I'm going to say include nothing. So now that field force that's pulling it forward, this body isn't being tugged by that at all, but the head should be. It's got its own dynamics. So now the head is getting pulled forward, but the body is left behind. But that means naturally that the front should be kind of front heavy. It's going to tug it forward, so that gives us a inherent direction. Yeah, we just stay over here for MPB Mike, I'm assuming. If you can post in the YouTube the Twitch URL. Let's see if I have that pasted. Yeah, if you can post that. Oh, no, you're not going to be able to put a chat. But if you can go over there and say just head over to Twitch, I'd appreciate it. It wasn't because of my internet going away. I couldn't get back into that chat room. But anyway, let's stick with our dynamic sheep. So we've got our cute little dynamic sheep. It's in a null. That can now be named sheep. And now we can make the entire cluster of them. And there's, oh yeah, I said the cloner is going to take over the color. So we do need to hopefully make a material that actually will remember itself. Yeah, for now, whatever reason. Like I said, I think the Espresso didn't like something about it. There we go. Cute. Sheep, yes, but more spacing. More spacing. Okay, we got our army of sheep now. We'll spin that a bit and get them a little more trapped so nobody escapes. That's the idea. Okay, reactivate the wall, and let's see what we get. So hopefully we've got our adorable little army of sheep, and they're all getting tugged forward, and they're all pushed away from each other, but yeah, they're moving forward pretty well. It's all working well. The head, the body's dragging it behind, which is fine. I'm going to increase the power of, well, here's that push apart force where I do want that to be stronger. Maybe we'll increase the radius a bit, so we'll say 30 and 60. And it needs to be stronger apparently, so let's double that. Let's go 500. Okay, that's starting to spread them out a bit. And our overall field force is pretty weak, so let's triple it. So now it should be three times the power, staying away from the wall, but also pulling them forward. Now, I do want them to stay away from the wall, but it doesn't have to be that much, so we'll decrease that radius. Layer 140. So they can get a little closer to the wall, that's the point. All right, so each of them is independently doing their own thing, traveling over that way. Once you get into this world, it's really easy to really start fiddling around. I want these to keep their distance a bit more. There we go. Yeah, there. Okay, as soon as they spread out right, then the vibe gets way better. So yeah, all of them are doing their own thing. That's working great. They're flowing forward, and they even have a frontal direction, which is pretty cool. So now let's start trying. I'm trying to think of what the best dynamic way would be to make them stop every once in a while. The only thing that pops in the mind isn't particularly dynamic. It's merely making a random field, and the random field. Actually, let's make a solid, so that is set to normal, and that completely just overrides everything. And I'm going to give it no direction, so it's pretty much like there's no power there. And then that will get masked out via a mask, via this random field. And that random field can now give it some sort of power. And pretty much I'm just thinking we'll make some dead zones. So how do we represent that? Well, under remapping, we can go to our curve and crank up the contrast like a whole bunch. And now there should, yeah, as I do that, you're going to start seeing some patches. The noise is probably pretty small, even though this whole scene is pretty small. That random field can be made larger. And as we go larger, we should start seeing there we go. You suddenly see it's like chaos, 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 and pattern emerges. And now we can start seeing the actual scale of it. So there we go. The idea being we can now make dead zones that when they go in there, they're just going to be like, oh, there's nothing pulling me forward. That is controlled via this pretty strong remapping. So we could make more or less dead zones. So we can do something like that maybe. Start seeing these little empty patches. So in general, they want to move forward. Right now, there's going to be dead patches and there's no animation speed. So let's just see what happens. Some of them are going to, well, they're super pushing apart from each other, which is cool. But now we got the dead zones. So they're probably immediately going to kind of find areas that they're like, oh, I'm just not moving. So they're kind of all just like, oh, what am I doing? But then one behind might boop one forward to keep going. And yeah, but you see, eventually they're all going to find these dead zones and not be moving. Were they all intersecting in the beginning? That initial explosion is bad because some of these are starting to collide with each other and the heads are getting stuck inside the body. Oh, and are the dynamics falling asleep? I thought they'd still be, yeah, they can't fall asleep. So yeah, let's just make sure that they're a little on top of each other for how strong we made that push apart force, which is quite strong now. That's a little calmer. Less heads seem to be getting stuck inside of bodies. Okay, so they're going to find different dead zones. Inside of that random field, we'll move the force up to the top, we can give it a little bit of animation speed. So yes, it'll find a dead zone for a little bit, but given a little bit of time, that dead zone will move to a different location. So now all of them should slowly work their way forward, randomly doing their own thing. Now, in theory, we told that dead zone to just be, well, right now it's a very large dead zone. That's entirely driven via where we told this to go. So if we scoot this over, then in general, the dead zones are a lot smaller. So in general, we'll get more movement forward, but they will be slowly moving around doing their own thing. But when they hit a dead zone, it doesn't have to be a dead zone. It could be a different direction. It could be a completely random thing where they scoot over and go do something else. But all of them should now want to go forward, and occasionally they'll fall asleep. But as the animation is slowly going, then they'll keep getting tugged forward. That's the idea. It's a bit slow right now. Let's give them more power, about double it. Go a little bit faster, everybody. Of course, the doubled power probably means that they're going to fall asleep a lot less often because the dead zones aren't quite large enough to catch them. So with the extra power, we could add extra energy drain. So let's do a 90% energy drain on the body, and then the head, let's do only 5. So the head can kind of stay moving and wiggling, but the body's constantly like draining lots of energy out. So we just get the combination there. And yeah, they're just going to keep doing their thing. We just find the right calibration here. So yeah, that can hit a dead zone and stop. But when they are moving, they're moving at a decent speed. And yeah, so that this is a non-espresso version. There's no intelligence to this one, but you can get a kind of flocking behavior going as they all do their thing. You could even, I know we're using those field forces in a really strong way. But you could use the field force. I wonder if we can, I'm going to tell these heads that they can't go inside the body. So I will scoot the head a little farther forward. That's the body. Let's scoot the head a little extra further forward and then tell the connector that don't ignore the connections. So now the head is connected to the body, but they can't pass through each other. So yeah, the head can still turn. Yeah, the head can still turn plenty, but it can't go inside. But yeah, right now they're all moving kind of independently, doing their own thing, and they're being told don't get too close to each other. But there is a cool thing you do with field force, which is, I do kind of want, I mean, they are still getting on top of each other. It's such a tricky balancing act. I want to see what is the, I want them to be able to slip past each other. How much friction do they have? I think they have 0 friction, right? Yeah, 0 friction. We could give them more bounce so that when they hit the wall or each other, they're like, whoa, I'm out of here. But we don't want the head bouncing off the body. So maybe the head has very little bounce, but the body has a bunch. Anyway, what I was going to get to is an idea of them still wanting to stay clustered together. So let's give them a little bit more room. Grabbing the original helix, T for scale. Just scale that up a bit so those roadways are a little bit larger. And our sheep. Gather up a little bit more. We'll give them a little more space. Pew. Adorable. Okay, so now we've got all of those going around, doing their own thing. We could potentially try and keep them in a cluster with a secondary field force. So this is our force negative, but we could do a larger force positive. And the idea here is we make, currently they're pushing apart by 500, but we could say, actually, you are attracted by 200, but not in this close range. So it's weaker, but it's larger. So if I give it like a range of, let's say 500, and we're gonna have to find the right calibration here, but you now see that we get these clusters of sheep that are all like getting sucked in. Yeah, I mean, weird. That was not the intent. But let's weaken this significantly. Drop it down to, I don't know, 50. And let's see what happens. Yeah, so it's in for a square, but it's probably got to be real weak. The idea being is that we have a very large but much weaker force that keeps them all wanting to stay kind of generally in a group, but it's super overwhelmed by this really strong negative force that has a small distance. So if I triple the power of that, but shrink the distance a bit, and yeah, they should maybe want to stay as a cluster a little bit more, is the idea. And generally, you know, so many different things we do with field forces. We could just make a second, let's make another noise, and it'll be below this one. But this random field, I'll make, let me show you correctly. Let's set that to normal. Give me the power. And that's all these crazy directions, but let's just keep on increasing it until we get some coherent noise, and we'll give it some decent speed. And yeah, that just becomes something that can overlay on top of everything. So we could literally overlay. So the sheep could be getting some more randomized directions, which right now it seems a little overpowering. They don't seem to have a particular direction they want to go, but then we could just start, it's a little slow. Yeah, so they're all just kind of wandering around doing their own thing. And we'll just start pulling back on the power a little bit until we get that nice equilibrium of, you know, they'll get some variation in the way that they're moving. And in general, they still want to go the main way because it's overlaid and it's not full power. It's a bit uniform still. Let's increase that scale more. The overall power, because of some of these combinations, I'm going to speed them up a little bit. They're still getting a little bit close for my taste, so let's weaken the overall attraction. The negative power, we have it pretty strong, so I will increase that a bit. There we go, get away from each other. And yeah, it just goes to layering, and we get some hopefully crazy looking kind of flocking behavior. So the emergent behavior is super interesting. When they all started like crashing into each other, it got ridiculous. It is amazing just by putting like two different boxes. It's amazing how immediately you kind of start getting character where like they do have a direction that they move forward. And there almost starts to be a personality to them overall. Funny. Weird. But I like it. Let's make the fences a little bit thinner. Change the color. So yeah, you know, field force here. I mean, the important thing to remember is that this is fully dynamic. We're running not quite at real time, but not super slow. Let's give it, I'm going to try doubling the speed and just see what we get. Because, I mean, the other thing we saw was also time lapse. They're probably not going to stop here if we put the speed up too much. But keep in mind that we do have that kind of speed setting if they're going a little slow for us. The bodies wibble and wobble a bit more than I want, so we've got angular damping. I'll calm those down so there's less wiggle and wobble. But with any luck, we could put obstacles here. So if we steal the dynamics tag from the floor, and I move the cylinder here, the sheep can't get around that. They're just going to bonk into it. But they've got a bunch of randomness moving. So you see that they will go around it eventually. So you can just put obstacles in and they will work their way around. You could put some negative attraction around it. We could do some various shapes to stop those from to actually like flow around it because they wouldn't naturally aim for it. So in the same way we're saying like, hey, avoid the wall, we could say, hey, avoid various shapes, like in a really easy way actually. Here, I'll show you that because it's actually pretty cool. We don't need that lead sheep anymore. Although, yeah, there's things we could do potentially to, oh, that would be fun. Yeah, maybe we'll sneak in like a couple of herd dogs here to push everything away. So let's get rid of that lead sheep for now. But what I wanted to show you is we're currently doing a really good job of avoiding this wall, but we could avoid other things. Oh, there's going to be a big old sheep traffic jam soon. But here's a thought. If I were to make something like an end side, lay it flat on the ground, give it a couple extra edges, and it's a little big, so we'll shrink it. If I want to put that into a connect object so we don't have to keep on relinking, and then we'll just call this avoid. We can put whatever shapes we want in there, but the idea being I could put this end side anywhere I want because in the field force I will feed in. Oh, I don't have the dead zones in, but at this point I just want to see what happens when all the sheep get trapped in this one spot, and then we'll continue. So let me check it out. Uh-oh. Yep, sheep traffic jam. Once they all start pushing in, even the negative force isn't enough at the current settings to stop them. So yeah, I'd say they've been penned pretty well. Any escapees? No. We got a straggler, but that's fine. All right. Abusing sheep. Let's go back again. Anyway, so I've got this avoid. The idea being inside of our field force, I'm going to turn on that solid again. So sun will stop. Okay, inside of here, I will drag our avoid, and the avoid will come in as a spline object. Turning on our display again, we should be able to see around here that because it's a spline, I have the ability to say, you are not a long, but you're a radius, and give it a radius, and you're going to see this radius go. We already know from the wall that we have to flip it to negative. So under its direction, I will say turn off invert direction. So now there should be a radius around this thing that will push them away. So let's see what happens if I move this into their path. So the hope here is that when they get close, they're going to be like, no, I can't get close, and they'll avoid it. Yeah, you see it? That one got close. It's like, no, I can't. And now it went around without ever bonking its head in. And all we have to do is kind of calibrate that to the right setting. So right now we're on avoid normal, and it's a distance of 100, which is actually quite a bit. But let's, I'm going to make it 3 times as powerful. Yeah, it's 3 times as powerful. And yeah, now you see they're just naturally avoiding it. But what's cool about this, and I love doing this type of rig, is I can just duplicate that end side. And now I've got a completely unrelated end side. So I can just make another one here. And you see immediately, I could use this to like push the sheep around. Because it's seeing the connect object. So we could just keep on modifying this however we want. So even though, I'll turn off the field force visibility. Yeah, I can just make duplicates of that. So if we were doing, you know, different shapes, different silos or whatever, they can just become children of these end sides. And those end sides actually represent them not being able to go through. But it's actually doing a direct avoidance. So where's that end side? Oh yeah, the I wonder if that still works, because there's a thing with a connect object that as soon as there's any geometry inside of it, it stops seeing it as a spline. So it's something to keep in mind. But yeah, those should be avoiding and going around, and we've still got our sheep going. Now that I turn on that randomness, you see a bunch of them are kind of straggling and it's going behind. But we do have kind of our adorable little herd of sheep traveling around doing their own thing. And I mean, we are building a surprising amount of intelligence into this in spite of, you know, not coding anything. We're just using the field forces, and it just unlocks so much power here. Cute. Okay, so then the last thing I kind of want to do is, you know, let's do maybe a herd dog type of concept. So let's see, how do I want to do it? We got the sheep. I guess we can do an entire second cloner, and this one will just be the dog, and the body of the dog, we'll make him brown. We need very few of them, so we'll just make 4. And the head, yeah, the head can be brown as well. Okay, so those are our herd dogs. We'll make it a little darker. It's a little neon. Okay, so those are our herd dogs. My thought was, does this work? Maybe that's not as easy as well, we'd have to make it editable. I kind of wanted to put like just some giant negative attractors on them so the sheep would super avoid them. But the negative attractors won't dynamically link independently. We could do a large field force, but that can be challenging. The easiest thing to do would just be, we'll just make 1 dog and we don't have to worry about it. So we'll just see what happens. So here's 1 dog. And he will get a field force. Just do a big old spherical field. Keep it simple. So spherical field. Drop it as a child of the dog's body. And now we get that. And I can make it whatever size I want. So let's go like that. And let's see what happens to start out with. Oh, and we could be a completely separate field force, which is probably a good idea because I don't want the dog to be attracted to its own spherical field. Yeah, I think we have to do that. So delete that one, and we'll make a brand new field force. Even that, like with all the complication we have in that field force, but now we can just be like, we'll just make a separate one. And yeah, that goes on the dog. Oh, I do move the wrong thing. Move the correct thing. Okay, field force. Let's call this one field force dot dog. It will get that, and we'll give it a bunch of power. So let's go overboard. So we'll say 222, and that should do it. I'll just say that the body, that this dog, it's got the same behaviors as the other one, but the head, which is the exclude, excludes nothing. I will exclude the dog force from it. So the dog isn't affecting the dog. So let's see what happens. Ooh, okay, the sheep are beating up on the dog to start out with. Okay, field force, sphere. Oh, they're attracted to the dog right now. They like the dog because the spherical field needs a direction invert. There we go. And now suddenly they run away. And now the dog's free to wander around. So, yeah, so this just goes to the dog has this field force. We can make it whatever scale we want. And the field force dog just needs a certain amount of power, which it seems to be pretty good. But let's go a little bit larger. Let's just see. Let's go 555. So it's a really strong force. And you see they definitely don't want to get near the dog. But I think something that might be fun would be randomly making it strong or weak. And we could do that by keyframing it. This would be a good use for Grayscale Gorilla Signal, but keeping this vanilla. In the dog field force, what if we make a very large random field? And you see it's a big mess right now. But if I start increasing a whole bunch, like make it super consistent, and set that just to multiply. So now it's multiplying on the attractor. So that should randomly make it strong or weak, giving it a significant amount of animation speed. You see, suddenly they ran away, and then they might forget as that cloud of noise moves around. It's like, oh, it's okay, they're cool with the dog, and then suddenly they don't want. Yeah, they're going to care and not care about the dog depending on if that field force passes through or not. So let's watch. You see all of them are avoiding, and then it multiplies more, so they're not avoiding as much. And now they're bullying the dog. So, yeah, maybe that's fine, but I'll weaken it a bit. And it'd be kind of neat to make the dog affected more strongly by the overall field force. I'm not sure if that's possible. I will increase its head's mass, which might be a way of doing it, custom density. And let's go 5 and see if the dog seems to have more action. Ooh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, he definitely kind of charged forward there. Yeah. Move, sheep, move. So yeah, you see now I've got this separate agent that has a slightly different behavior and can affect the other ones. Meanwhile, all these sheep are just doing their thing, moving around, like slowly making their way towards the front as a herd, and the dog has left them behind. And yeah, I mean, there's just so many goofy, crazy things we could do to layer this up. A lot of fun. We could really push these rigs far. This is a different type of question. I like this. Let's make his radius pretty large. So the idea being he's going to really catch up to all of them. And I'll even turn off that random for now. So I just want to see, as the dog is faster than all of them, he should kind of force the ones in the back to go forward. See, he's like, go, 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 catch up, catch up. Although along those lines, we, yeah. The dog has a lot of influence right now. Look at them go. It's pretty good though. I mean, like that definitely is giving the impression that the dog is like, no, no, go, go. Like you guys have to move. One even jumped over the fence. Keep in mind that all these forces are 3-dimensional. They're just being held down by gravity. He's in a dead zone, but eventually that sheep will start going around. So yeah, that worked pretty well. He's definitely, and then what you can do is colorize all of these to random colors via the cloner, and whichever one makes it to the center of the pen first wins. But yeah, I love this type of simulation stuff. It's so fun and weird and goofy. So he did successfully get 4 of them all the way around. Wow, just because the forces are affecting the head, it gives such an impression of them running away instead of just being dynamically bounced around. And bing, bing, bing. Pretty fun. I love the look of the whole herd rushing to get away from the dog. Bark, 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 bark. But yeah, I mean, so apparently, what's good to know is that by increasing the density of the head, that it did increase the amount that the field forces were applying. So we could go double, so the dog is like twice as likely to move forward. But and then you could make more copies of dogs. You just have to keep on duplicating the field force. But I can't really think of a way to. I can. There's some convoluted ways of maybe making it so you could put a couple dogs in the cloner. Yeah, the way the kind of snake can flow around. There's a lot of fun there. But yeah, that will wrap up this question anyway. We are getting near the end, but maybe we can sneak in one more question. Ooh, the dog found a dead zone. That gives the sheep a moment to relax. Oh, you know what we gotta do? Because this is super stupid and fun. Let's do dog cam. So we'll make a camera, make a child. We'll do the body, and then we'll link to it. And now we'll go over here. And we'll get a little bit wider field of view. Now let's rewind all the way. And then, oh, I want to give it lots of power, so let's give the head, that's a sheep. Let's give the head of the dog the 5 again. And let's get a POV doggy cam. Bark, 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 bark. Whoa, calm down there, doggy. He's got a lot of movement. There we go. So there we go. No keyframes. Okay, it's more fun to see the sheep freak out from the ground view. Okay, that one leapt over the wall. And he's still going. And yeah, with a bit of intelligence, like maybe a little bit of code, you could totally make these, like potentially have a little bit of intelligence to do certain things at certain times. And even here, I mean, just because we're here and it's fun and weird and interesting, something I'll do is like, okay, we're on this doggy cam, which is fun, but it gets a little nauseating because we're completely perfectly locked to the dog. So here's something I do. I would make a second camera so we know where we want it to be, and here's our secondary one. So let's link to the secondary one and then do something simple like a rigging character, or I'm sorry, a rigging constraint tag, turn on spring. And what do I want to spring to? Well, I want to spring to, let's say, the position of the original camera. And I'll say, a length of 0. And then independently, I'll put another one on. And this one will control the rotation. So we can do different rotation and position. But now, the dog, there's a little bit more freedom for the dog to go. And you see our camera can go crazy. So now I can grab both of those and say, okay, yeah, that's fine. But let's put a bunch of drag. So it's going to calm ours down. You see how we're kind of lagging behind the dog that little bit? And that just, like, that removes so much of the nauseating layer. Like, yeah, feel like, look how much calmer that is automatically because we're taking the edge off from that drag. And you could independently set those. We could have the strength of the positional clamp be stronger, so we're going to be a little bit more on this position, even though there's still some drag. And the rotation is calmed down now. And I love doing this type of thing where you make a camera and then the second one is also a camera and you start interlinking between cameras, because at any given point it's like, okay, like I want to see this in real time, so I can just link to the original camera. It's like, okay, cool, we're locked in. And then we can do the secondary camera where it's like, oh, it's lagging a little bit behind, it's a little bit smoother, and you could layer and layer and layer on top of that, where maybe we do that and now we say, okay, yeah, but then there's a third camera, and that third camera is just a child, and I'll link to that one. Reset the PSR, and that one just gets some vibration in it. So let's get some, like, as if the dog is bouncing us around. So I don't want any, let's do some position. Oh, we're getting a little, well, let's, how far can we go here? How big is this? 15. And I don't usually speed up yeah, there we go. So now you see we're kind of bouncing up and down where it's like the camera's stuck to it. And then we could do a bit of rotation here. You don't want to go too far. Let's do, actually, maybe we'll do them on those other angles. And we'll keep it slow. 1. So yeah, there we go. So now, yeah. So look how much personality we can start doing. And so now we kind of got this like camera that's like, now it feels like we're maybe locked to them, or we're camera on the tail of it. And there's all this life as it's kind of bouncing around just through some random motion and some random vibration. Let's turn off the display on that field force. And it's like, okay, cool. So it's kind of like this runny, shaky cam behind the dog. But yeah, okay, but now I just want to see the spring camera, so we can link to the spring camera. And it's like, okay, now we don't have the shake. So even that, we probably name that one like camera spring, and then this one can be camera shake, and that can be camera, locked. And it's like, okay, cool. So here's our smooth one, and we can go to our locked dog camera. So now we're super robotic, and the ability to just smoothly jump between those and go like one layer deeper to get these different layers of animation. I do that. I do these types of rigs all the time for getting control over my camera. And like, look how much life you get automatically by setting it up this way. I'm going to increase the power just a bit of staying away from the wall. This is the wall one. Probably good to name that one wall. And I will push that back to 222 and maybe even give it a little more power. So that just keep everybody away from the wall a little bit more. Come on, dog. You got to get the last one in. Don't let him escape. Yeah, good job. Yeah, you got one in. Only one. Okay, one last time. And then we will see if there's one more question to sneak in. Yeah, I like the shake a lot. That actually adds a lot of life to it. Considering we're just chasing a bunch of cubes around. I wonder. I mean, it's so goofy. You can spend unlimited time here. Let's grab the body of the dog and see if we can add. I don't know if it works with dynamics, but let's add add hair and 10. Yeah, let's go a little. He'll be a fluffy dog, and I want to, in the editor, see the hair lines, but we don't need to see too many. We'll have the hairs. We'll do 5,000 hairs. That'll calm it down a little bit. Yeah, a little weird and stiff, but yeah. Okay, the fuzzy hairs aren't adding to it. It's just like it's mangy. So, failed experiment on the hairs. But yeah, we could put some floppy little ears on there, put a tail on, and that would go a super long way. Bark, 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 bark. Yep, so anybody who's interested, this scene file will be available on Patreon. Let's say, I'm going to rewind a few times, get here. We got our dog sheep chasing simulation. Excellent question. I liked it. Yeah, you should totally watch Babe. Directed by the same person who made Mad Max, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. Going to propose. Oh, somebody's like jump hurdles. I mean, there's nothing to stop us from putting some jumps in here. In the same way we put the obstacles. Let's de-link from the camera. If we just do something real simple, like make a cube, like the directions are still direction. So if we just tilt that down a bit and do something like that, there's no reason that shouldn't work as a sheep jump. So we can now collide with it. And then, I don't know if this is a good idea, but just as a goof, what if we make a wind? I'll make that child of it. Reset PSR. Spin it 90 degrees. Pull it up. So there's a wind, and then we set that to, I don't know, 100. We'll give it a fall off, a box field fall off. So now if a sheep gets in range of it, it should suddenly get an extra burst of wind so it can actually take the jump. The sheep are not excluding anything, I think, so they should see that. So let's just see if any sheep is interested in our ramp. Well, it looks like somebody will be. Whee! Yeah, look at that. That worked better than I thought it would. Those are some pretty good jumps. I don't know if anybody will take it if they're not being chased by the dog. Oh, one is. Come on, do it. Yeah! Wing! So, yeah, totally cool. Marshall, thank you. Thanks for coming and hanging out. I don't know what is a rating with a party of 8? But in any case, thank you. That's a thing that when people see it, they say thank you. But yeah, we should do more of this type of simulation stuff because it's really fun. It'd be fun to make some renders along these lines too. So many things we could do. I mean, we could have like the sheep munching grass as they go. Like each of these could be erasing out a vertex map on the ground. Like this is only the beginning of what you could potentially build. Ta-da. So awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, hanging out. This was a fun one. I think we are officially at the end. That is saved. Fun, goofy simulation. I'm glad that we tried a version without Espresso. So like just fields can do so much. There was actually people were really great about asking questions this time. Keep all these questions in mind for a week from now so we can tackle more questions. I do appreciate all of the links. We couldn't do this without the questions from everybody. Once again, you get access to these scene files on Patreon, as well as 2 bonus streams a week on normal weeks, and discounts on all the plugins. In addition to that, I did just release Mesh to Spline, which there should be, I don't know if there's a link below, but in any case, if you're supporting our Patreon, you get links for that as well. I probably have here's just a link if anybody wants to go check it out. If you want to support me, the best way to support is getting a tool that helps you out. So there's a link to more information or the direct Gumroad store. If you're supporting on Patreon, you get really big discounts on the plugins, and then Ricochet only came out a month ago, so that's pretty recent. But in any case, that's going to wrap this up. The questions were really fun. Thanks, everybody. It was cool. See you next week for a regular episode, and that'll do it. Pull this up and then say bye-bye, everybody.